Welcome back, everybody, on Tuesday. Hopefully, you had a good day yesterday on Monday. By the way, if you missed our episode yesterday, we talked to Del Wilber, former intel officer in his times in Baghdad, and how with the work he did with the Baghdad Police Academy over there. Very fascinating stuff. So, hopefully, you'll catch that. Check out our playlist as well from all our live interviews. You can check out some of our favorite playlists with sovereign citizens. If you don't know who they are, go find out through the playlist. You'll be surprised. Situational awareness playlist, I think you'll enjoy that. Remember, we're trying to understand the world one video at a time. And today we're going to be trying to talk about, we're not going to try, we're going to talk about reducing negative thinking and stress. And with me today is Abigail G. Manning. You can find her at the website, abigailgmanning.com. And she's going to tell us, she's the founder of Create Awareness. We're going to learn a lot about cognitive restructuring. I know, not a fancy, it's a fancy term. We don't hear it very often. We're going to find out what it means and a whole lot more. So let's welcome to the show, Abigail. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Oh, thank you for being here. Again, folks, this is Abigail Manning. She's going to be talking to us today about negative thinking and handling stress. So hang tight, especially during these times. So Abigail, tell us a little bit about your work.
Fantastic. Well, exactly what you're saying. I try to work really hard to help people see what may have been holding them back in the past and how to move forward in the future. I'm blessed that I started working with the military about 3 or 4 years ago, and it has launched from there. And I love doing workshops and training and keynote event speaking. Most of the topics I talk about are big, heavy topics that most people don't want to talk about. They're sexual harassment, prevention, and assault. And how do you look at that in a whole new, fresh language? And I built all my own language and artwork and curriculum around that. So harassment prevention, resilience building is another area that I love, how to lower stress and increase resilience, increase your fortitude to get up and over any and all obstacles and actually become stronger on the other side. I also have a diversity and inclusion program that I'm building right now, and I'm co-teaching that with some other instructors that are retired military that are fabulous people. And then finally, I teach with a former CIA agent our soft skills for hard power, again, about cognitive social behavioral theories and how do we really put those into place in the real world. So we take these concepts like cognitive restructuring and we put them in everyday type of language, everyday type of examples. And it seems to be thankfully resonating with people. And so that's what I've been up to most recently.
Can you tell us what is cognitive restructuring? I'm sure a lot of people are going to wonder, what does that mean?
Sure. So it's basically changing the way we look at things, the cognitive, the way we think about things, right? So part of my curriculum is based on what I call purple threads. And purple threads are what are woven inside of us. And they're, so if you think about PT a little bit in there, the purple threads, it is our limiting personal thoughts that are based on past traumas that get physiologically wired into what we think, say, and do. So all of the work that I really focus on is how do you have self-awareness? What are my limiting thoughts? What am I thinking up here, right? And so that's your cognitive, right? And then restructuring is how do we change that? How do we take what's limiting us, a negative thought that we're not even aware that's running in the background almost 24/7, and how do we restructure it? How do we rewire it? How do we rebuild it so that it can now become our strength instead of something that's holding us back? And to me, just as importantly, how do we see that in other people and help the team build a better team around us by being able to see other people's purple threads?
You know what? I guess the first question I have is, what are some of the common thinking patterns that people have when they're stressed out, or the negative thinking? Let's do negative thinking first. What are some of the things that you notice?
Well, what I do as part of my workshops and trainings, I have people, we'd go through a workshop process. I like having it really highly interactive. And I'm blessed that they establish a level of trust with me and they start sharing what these purple threads or limiting personal thoughts are. And they're usually unworthiness statements. So the negative side of that is we think small, we act small then, right? We're not going to think big and go for bigger things. We sabotage ourselves or we have imposter syndrome. And so the first step is to really recognize those negative thoughts that we have and say, are these serving me well or are they not? And then we take it to the next step.
Interesting. I know some of the thoughts that people have is catastrophizing, right? Everything's horrible. If this happens, this is the worst that could ever happen. Have you ever dealt with anybody like that or those kind of thoughts?
Well, absolutely. And especially if you've been through trauma like I have. I came through childhood abuse by both my parents and domestic violence, and I was in the bottom of the pit at PTS. So right now, with a heightened levels of stress, it's easy to slide right back into that negative thinking, that negative thought process of I've 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 had problems. I am a problem. I'm not strong enough to overcome this problem. Other people are doing it better than me. And then, so very, very quickly, we start falling into this quicksand. And then that takes us down what I call the adverse spiral, which starts with stress and fear and quickly moves down past unworthiness. And it slides down to a whole bunch of other gambit of awful things and consequences. And that's why I'm so proactive about building our resilience, so that we see stress as a challenge, right? Something that can make us stronger, and then recognize when we're getting triggered, especially if we've had layers of trauma. If you've been in, for example, first responders, if you've been in the military, if you've had any other kind of forms of life traumas. And again, that's part of that purple thread. It's based on past trauma.
It's amazing how much of an impact, especially if you're a child. If you're younger than 5 or 6, you don't have the ability to really process it, right? You don't have the mental capacity to understand what's happening to you. And then it starts manifesting itself in all sorts of different ways. Any stories that you could share with us with any of your clients that you've worked with? Success stories, anything of that all?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, Carlos, about it being coming when you're little. That's your new normal. So I grew up with it from the time I was a little child. So that was my normal, right? I didn't have a sense of scale, a sense of what is healthy versus unhealthy. So that's something that's really important to me, to be able to help people see what feels like you feel like I should know this, right? That's that blame and shame and judgment. So you don't ask questions because you like, everybody knows this. Everybody should understand this. How did I get here? But when it happens, especially at a young age, what happens is those layers, those purple threads get woven in deeper and deeper and deeper, and they're harder to pull out. The success stories, I have so many, I can't even tell you. I get notes all the time from even professional athletes that I've worked with, from military, some high command, commanders in different positions. And most recently, I was working at the United States Air Force Academy, and the cadets coming back with their success stories. My own personal is that I overcame all of that trauma. I got up and out of that pit with the help of other people. And then I helped my kids see what is normal, as in healthy, and stop the cycle. That's the key to me, is stopping the cycle of unhealthy behaviors, rewiring that cognitive development and thought processing, right? And saying, no, there's a better way. I'm going to do this better way. And my kids are really, in my opinion, very, very successful. They're Marines. They're high functioning. They are in solid, wonderful, loving relationships. So for me, it doesn't get much better than that.
Oh, that's great. And you tell both of your children, thank you for their service as well. Folks, just to give you an update of who's coming around this week, we're going to have Mr. Maresco, who's going to be here tomorrow. Brian Maresco, you might have seen him on Joe Rogan. He's going to be talking about the immortality key, the secret history of the religion with no name. Doesn't that sound good? Isn't that a good title? So he's
Yeah.
going to be coming out tomorrow. Dr. Larry Young talking about the science of attraction with neuroscience. And on Friday, we're going to have former FBI agent Andrew Bringo giving us his top 10 of the week. I don't know what it is. He likes to surprise me, so who knows what it is. And on Monday, we're going to be looking about storytelling and how storytelling can have an impact on your life with Hannah Harvey. So that should be a lot of fun as well. Folks, want to support our show, make sure to hit that like button and share. We truly appreciate it. If you want to learn more about Abigail, you can go to abigailgmanning.com. So Abigail, in regards to military, I know they go through a lot of issues, trauma when they go overseas, when they're in combat or whatnot. What are some of the things you would first want to start off with when you're helping somebody like that who's going through such a tough time?
Yeah, and hopefully what I'm trying to do is be ahead, preventive, right? Proactive. So instead of reacting to something, you're responding, and you're doing that with calm and control. Instead of responding, you're preventing. So my goal is ultimately we get ahead of the problem. We know what they're going to see. We know what they're going to face. We know some of the challenges. My son just got back from deployment. I'm learning new things from boots on the ground all the time. And to me, if we can give a strong skill set before you go see what you know is going to be a challenge, a stress, fear, really, really hard things, really hard things that we ask our military that they it's just part of the job, unfortunately, some of the trauma that they see and they go through. And so if we can build these cognitive restructuring skills from the very beginning, they'll have the tools and the resources. So when I talk about it getting physiologically wired in us, let's give the tools out there. Let's teach tapping. Let's teach 68 seconds. Let's teach these skill sets so that when they find themselves slipping, and you can catch yourself because you're aware of your thought process, you can say, nope, stop. And now I'm going to implement my skills. Obviously, there's tons we can do. I was really, really bad in PTS when I was going through all of it. And it works, but you can't quit. You have to keep going. You have to keep trying. And trust me, you'll want to quit over and over, but please don't. There's so many solutions out there, mine and a million other people who are doing fabulous work. Just keep looking and working towards the goal of happiness and health and well-being, because it is achievable.
Let me ask you this, the times we're going through right now, we're going through a lot of challenges this year. 2020 has been unique in many ways. What are some of the tips you can give individuals to be able to handle the stresses of everyday life that we're going through right now?
The number one, thank you, great question. The number one I would say is be kind. Be kind to yourself. I'm hearing more and more people, especially people who work in this field, saying, I don't know why this is the hardest year of my life. I've been through so much more, but emotionally, I'm feeling defeated. I'm feeling down. I'm feeling like, is what I'm doing even matter? And so be kind to ourselves. Do the simple things like sleep, get enough sleep and monitor your sleep and follow some apps. Do the exercise. It's much harder. We can't go to the gym. I love going to the gym. So I've modified what I'm doing, right? But I'm making sure I do it every day. Watch yourself on the adverse spiral. One of the first ways people fight depression is they self-medicate, and with addictions. And so, you're over shopping or you're overeating or you're feeling depressed, and worse, you're thinking you're lazy. Instead of saying, this is just feeling down and struggling, people start internalizing it and thinking they're the problem. They're at fault. They're lazy. And those are the warning signs where I want people to stop and then be kind to themselves and say, no, this is a hard time. This is a really tricky time. And if I haven't dealt with all those other layers, now they're adding up. So of course, during a bigger stressful time, they're going to be showing up. So be kind to each other, be kind to yourself.
That's great stuff. One of the things we do tend to have that bad habit is the internal dialogue when we say things to ourselves, right? Why am I so stupid? Why am I doing this? We have to be careful with that internal dialogue and what we say to ourselves, because a lot of times we get the answers we don't really want. I don't know if you ever encountered that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking about the childhood too, what that's called grooming. So you're being groomed to think that way. And the reason why is so you don't question authority. You don't question that they're right. They make you think you're crazy so that you don't start having confidence in your own self-belief. And that can really run deep in ourselves. And for adults, it's called gaslighting. So people can make you feel that way if you don't know the signs of harassers and abusers. And it's easy to fall into that trap. But the ultimate goal of someone who's trying to manipulate, or what stress, the ugly name of stress and the voice of stress and fear, is they try to make you feel crazy. So if you're feeling crazy, congrats, you're normal. You're feeling,
You actually made a great point about gaslighting, because that's a topic that's really been on the forefront in the last year or so, is gaslighting, and just in social media and the news, we hear it all the time. And different actors trying to make other individuals think they're crazy in the way they're thinking, which is kind of fascinating to watch. And social media manipulation and media manipulation is really fascinating to me. But I'm digressing, folks. Maybe we should do a show on that. What do you think, folks? Gaslighting? I think that could be a fascinating one too. So Abigail, towards the end here in the last few minutes together with the show, everybody, you can find more about Abigail at abigailgmanning.com. Tell us a little bit, some of the techniques that you would recommend people can do at home. I know you mentioned exercising, but what kind of thought things can they do? Any thought exercises that people can do to overcome stress and to be able to handle negative thinking?
Yep, absolutely. Whenever I'm on a different show, I always try to come up with something new that's exclusive to that show, right? So this morning I was thinking, what takeaway could I give people? Number one is get a journal, get a notebook, put a big line down the middle of it. On the left-hand side is going to be negative. On the right-hand side is going to be positive. For 3 days, I want you to self-monitor and write negative thoughts, negative sayings, finger-pointing language, should, shame, blame, judgment, and isolation. I should have known better. Why didn't I do this? I'm such an idiot. right? The times that you wanted to call a friend and you didn't because you were embarrassed. I don't want to look like a loser. I don't want to look like I'm not strong. I don't want to look like I'm weak. Put that all in the negative column and then put in the positive column how many times you're like, way to go. I'm stressed, but I got out of bed and I'm making 3 more phone calls today. I'm relentlessly moving forward. I'm proud of me. And then you can start monitoring when we can see it on paper and we'll notice, wow, I'm really a lot of negative talk. That's a quick way of kind of restructuring our brain and saying, you know what? I wouldn't talk about to my best friend that way. I wouldn't talk to my kids that way. Why am I talking to me that way? And then that's one of the first steps you can do, I think, in restructuring the brain and telling yourself, nope, only positive, only realistic, only kind, only productive language am I going to allow inside this body of mine, especially in this powerful machine up here.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff. Folks, by the way, tomorrow we got Brian Maresco who's going to come and talk about history of religion. It's interesting because he's going to be talking about the relationship between religion and drugs. I know, strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's also going to talk about the Greeks and their religion and the religion they believed and drugs. So that's going to be fascinating. By the way, hang tight. In another week or two, I'll be creating some videos on the 5. That's what I call it. So the 5 ways to influence YouTube algorithm with psychology. That's coming up first in about a week or two. So stay tuned for that. Make sure to share and subscribe if you want to support our show. We truly appreciate it. Abigail, in the last minute or two here, what's the final message you want to send out to people?
I'm going to go back to be kind. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to other people. Have optimism. Optimism can look really, really little in this current lifestyle and circumstances and world events and everything, but have hope. Think of one thing you can do today that's going to make you a better person tomorrow and keep moving towards that and connect with one another. I talk about 3 bridges in my work, how we all need to have 3 bridges, 3 people we could go to. And a bridge isn't built overnight. A steady bridge is built with a solid foundation, reinforcement. Make sure you're connecting with other people, not only for yourself, but for them. Make sure you're reaching out to other people. And this better days are ahead. And the stronger we can make our thinking about our ability and our ability to connect with other people, what a beautiful world we're going to be building. So hold tight, people. It's a bumpy ride, but it's going to be worth it. We're going to be stronger and more resilient on the other side of this.
It always reminds me of the Greek philosopher Seneca, and people who've been following know I'm a big fan of Stoicism, but he used to say, I think it was, wherever there's a human being, there's an opportunity for kindness. And it's a great quote from Seneca. Abigail, the last thing I forgot to ask you too, what are the populations you're working with right now? Some of the groups that are your clients?
Well, I just finished working with a group in Italy, so that was really fun. They're running some more programs over there and workshops and training events and speaking events. So that's super exciting, and they're global. So I'm hoping that in 2021, my passport will be busted back out and getting a lot of stamps in it. And so I'm working with that. I love working with the military because of my connection, obviously, with my kids, but just what they stand for and the protector heart and first responders. But I also work with a lot of companies. Unfortunately, right now I'm getting calls from CEOs who've had suicide in their organization and they want to know now what to do. So my plea would be, instead of reacting, contact someone like me and be proactive and build the skill sets now so you don't have to suffer from the consequences later.
That's good advice. Folks, if you have any questions, by all means, you can hit them on the chat right now before we sign off if you want to. If you have any questions, again, thanks for listening very much. We have the shows Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be on this week, next week, and the following week, and then we'll take off the weekend, the week of Christmas. I think we might actually have one special interview on the week of Christmas. Not sure yet. We're still trying to get this athlete booked, so we'll see how that happens. Folks, we'll be starting up again in January, so we'll be looking forward to that. January 4th, we're going to have a great lineup set up for that week as well, as we always do. Got some fun guests, a lot of spies, I think, coming in January, and fitness experts too. Abigail G. Manning, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Doc. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing, and I appreciate you bringing me on your show.
Thank you very much. We're going to bring it back again, folks. AbigailGManning.com if you want to learn more information about her. If you have any questions at all, let us know. Hey, even after the show is done, you can always put your questions in the comments, and I can forward them to her. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Have a great day. We'll catch you.